All right, so let's take a bit of a closer look at a couple of examples of American villains. These two villains stand out from the rest in that they provide some additional insight into American values beyond what we've already discussed. So the first of these is known as the Ringmaster, which you can see on the cover here. And the Ringmaster is ultimately seeking to overthrow the US government, hoping to become ruler himself. Quote, he says, "Then I will rule this leaderless nation as the great Hitler rules in Europe. America's most vicious mobsters shall be my Gestapo, and we will grip the country in a steel vice of terror." So this villain is explicitly allied with the Nazi regime and that idea. But additionally, with this villain, Captain America emerges as a protector of the status quo, essentially perpetuating the existing structures of government against any who would impose change. Now, this is especially going to become important as we know that after the war, we move into the Cold War, which is ultimately a war of ideology between capitalism and communism, the American system and the Soviet system. And so this is really reinforcing the idea of the superiority of the American system by showing Captain America defending it so explicitly. The second example of one of these villains is a villain known as the Black Hand. This is a domestic villain which helps to construct the United States as a country of white innocence and sort of upholds the racial attitudes of the United States that are prevalent in this period in particular. The story of the Black Hand is that there is an artist who loses his hand in an accident and is forced to either give up his art or receive the donation of a new hand from a convict who is scheduled to be executed. An African American man, especially, by the name of Strangler Burns. Upon receiving his new hand, the artist begins to feel murderous rage going on a rampage. In this way, the crime is attributable to the infusion of the artist's body with the black hand of the murderer convict on death row. This is an explicit commentary on the deeply entrenched racist ideas in the United States. Again, this notion that this artist would be completely harmless had he not acquired the hand of not only a murderer, but a black murderer as well. This plays into the idea which I discussed in my chapter lectures about, the Red Cross keeping black and white blood separate in blood banks, because the idea is that you could cross-contaminate people because there was something inherently different and inferior about black people. And so this comic is playing into that idea. And it's ironic that a comic which stands so explicitly against Hitler and his Nazi regime would uphold so explicitly as well ideas of racial superiority like we see in a villain like the Black Hand. So those are our American villains. But what about foreign ones? Say, for example, the Nazis, the Germans, who are the at least first targets for Captain America and others. So in the next lecture, we're going to look at foreign villains.